Okay everyone, so last week we learned about this art word texture. We learned that a texture is the way something feels. It can be rough, smooth, hard, soft, lumpy, bumpy, anything that shows the way something feels, and we can use different lines and shapes in art class to show these feelings. So we added some texture to our fantasy scene last week on each of these layers of space. So we're going to use texture today to create just another new art project. So we're going to be creating what I call dragon eyes. So dragon eyes, obviously dragons are not real. This is a fantasy character, just like our last project. But dragon eyes have lots of different types of texture. Inside of the eye, there's a really smooth texture, and outside of the eye, there's a very bumpy, lumpy, scaly texture. So we're gonna practice drawing this and using our chalk to show these different types of textures in our scene. So what you will start with is your white piece of paper. You're gonna be drawing your dragon eye with a Sharpie marker, or if you wanna start first with a pencil, that's okay. And you wanna get this worksheet here. This will show you how to set up and draw the dragon eye. So everyone is just gonna draw one eye in the middle of their paper. So taking my worksheet here, I'm just gonna follow the steps to draw my dragon eye. So I'm gonna start in the corner side here, and I wanna make sure my dragon eye is very big. It should fill most of my paper, so that's a pretty good size. If you wanna start this with pencil first, that might be a good idea, just so that you can get the size correct. Then looking at the second picture here, it looks like there's some kind of like little wrinkle lines going around the eye, like little eyelids. Coming around here, there's a few more. So this doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of get the lines and shapes looking how they look on the picture. Then in the middle of the eye, there's this kind of like weird diamond shape. And then there's a circle. This circle is gonna be like the shiny part of the eye. Okay, now down below here, here's where it shows you how to draw different textures. So we are gonna keep this eye part smooth, but the outside of the eye should be very lumpy, bumpy, and scaly. So there's some different little dots. There's some circular and oval shapes and different types of shapes on the outside here. So look at this one and look at this one here, how they broke up the skin around into different little shapes. So this does not have to look exactly like the picture. Just do this kind of in your own random way. So I'm gonna start with maybe some big scales on the outside. So I'm just gonna do some odd looking oval shapes. And they kind of should fit together, almost like a puzzle. So these little ovals fit together like puzzle pieces. So I'm not just making circles, it kind of helps the dragon look more realistic if your ovals are a little bit more of an odd shape. So on my outside, I'm just gonna make some big scaly ovals. Okay, now as I get towards the inside of the eye, I can switch up my ovals. So maybe I can make some smaller ones, and the way that they fit together will be a little bit different than the ovals on the outside. So when we add different types of shapes to the texture areas, we call this variety. So changing up our shapes a little bit gives us a little bit of a difference in shape. It's more interesting, more variety. Okay, so I have some smaller scales here, some tinier bumps, some bigger bumps on the outside here. And then I can just add maybe some little tiny dots around here. Littler scales. So I want you to try and draw at least 3 to 4 textures on your dragon eye before you actually start to color this. And your textures should fill the entire space. You shouldn't leave any big blank areas here. So I need to keep working here to add more bumpy, scaly textures around the outside of the eye and in this space here. So I'm gonna keep working on that a little bit more.
Ms. Lewis, would you come to the office, please?
Okay, so I'm gonna keep working on this area as well. Maybe I can even do some more variety up here, some little tiny bumps. Looking at my picture again, and looking at the pictures from my basket, there's a whole bunch of different dragon eyes here. So look at the different textures that you see on each of those dragon eyes. This dragon has lots of different types of scales than this dragon. So really look at those and see if you can copy some of those shapes and how they fit together to make the scales. I can even do some shapes like this. So I'm kind of overlapping my scales right here a little bit. Kind kind of looks like little tiny hills connected together. So I think I'm gonna fill the rest of my space right here with different types of little overlapped scales. And you really can't make a mistake with this. Whatever you put down should look like a texture, as long as it's a line or shaped very close together. Okay, I've got my eye all drawn out here. Now I'm gonna start to color it. So we're gonna be coloring today with our chalk pastel. The reason why is because chalk pastel blends really nicely to make smooth textures, and in these little bumps we're gonna make smoother little textures inside of each bump. So getting your box of your chalk pastel at your table, think about what color you want your dragon to be. And really look at these worksheets to see what color you want the inside of the eye to be and what color you want the outside scales to be. So my inner eye, I think I'm gonna make that a bluish green color. So I'm gonna get some different types of blues and greens here that I can mix together. And once I have a good variety of blues and greens, I'm gonna start to color in the eye, make it a nice smooth texture. So looking at the outside of the eye, I might want to just find an example of a blue-green eye here to look at to help me guide how I'm going to add the texture of the eye. So looking at this eye here, I kind of like how these lines go out and they smooth from dark to light. So I think I will start with maybe a light blue. And then I'm gonna go and get my dark blue. And I think I'm even gonna get a little bit of a black for the corner there. So I'm gonna take a little bit of a black for the corner. Okay, notice how I'm just drawing right now. I haven't smoothed anything out yet. Once I have my color kind of blocked down here, now is the time to carefully smooth. I'm not gonna go crazy with my smoothing and use my whole hand. I'm just gonna use one finger to smooth these things out here, going from light to dark. And I'm gonna carefully make sure this blends nicely together. Okay, moving into this side here. All right, I think that looks pretty good. I think I might wanna put one more color layer down. Now I have a lot of chalk here. I'm not gonna blow it in the air. I'm just gonna tap it on my table to get it off. And then the inner eye, I'm gonna add this to be black and then this spot to be white. So I'm just gonna take my black here, color in a little bit, and I can do the rest of the color with smoothing out with my finger. And then again, tap it on my paper. And I think I'm just gonna outline it a little bit with the blue to make it stand out a little bit more from the rest. Just a little outline here. Okay, and then this little part right here, this is where I'm gonna make the eye look like it's a little bit shiny with these little white dots. So I'm just gonna take my white chalk and bring out that shiny dot. And I can even put a few more shiny marks around here. Just little lines or dots to make this eye look like it's smooth and shiny. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna work on the outside of the eye. The outside of the eye, each of these little scales can be a different color from the eye. So I think I'm gonna make my outside scales kind of like a red, orange, yellow color scheme. So I'll get those colors here. And then I can look at each of these little scales and I'm gonna color each of the scales in differently. So I'm gonna outline each of mine with red and then color them in with orange and yellow. And I'm kind of blending each of these scales together in a different way. Don't just color over your whole thing like this. Try and look at each of the shapes as a different shape and outline them that way. So outlining with red, coloring in with orange, and then yellow, adding some yellow bright spots. Now I'm noticing something. As I blend out my chalk, my fingers are very dirty. So I'm gonna take the wet rag at my table and just wipe my fingers on them to get some of this chalk off before I blend my orange and yellow, and I continue to do that. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna keep going with my scales on the outside. When I finish that, it should look something like this. Now, I can change up my colors too. I can add a little bit of green, lime green or pink, maybe even some black to some areas. So you can be really creative with your colors. Look at your dragon worksheets to see if you like any of those color schemes. Okay, when I'm finished, I should color the entire thing with my chalk.